There are moments in life when you realize that it's not what happens to you that breaks you, but how your mind interprets it. It's not the situation that breaks you, it's your internal narrative. It's not the problem that destroys you, it's the fear you built around it. And then you ask yourself, perhaps silently, perhaps wearily, why does everything seem to affect me more than it should? Why does my mind break down so quickly? Why do I feel like anything can move me, destabilize me, throw me off balance? Most people believe that a strong mind is a hard mind, a cold mind, a mind that doesn't feel. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. The truly unbreakable mind is not rigid. It is free. It doesn't break because it doesn't cling. It doesn't destroy itself because it doesn't identify with chaos. It doesn't get lost because it knows how to return to its center. It doesn't fall because it knows how to observe without reacting. Mental fragility does not stem from feeling too much. It stems from not knowing what to do with what you feel. It stems from living trapped in thoughts you don't question. It comes from identifying with each emotion that appears. It stems from believing that your mind is your enemy, when in reality, it is a territory that no one taught you how to inhabit. Buddhism says that suffering doesn't come from life itself, but from the unconscious habit of letting the mind drag you down. An unwavering mind isn't a mind without pain. It's a mind that doesn't surrender to pain. Not because he is ignorant of it, but because he understands it. Not because it represses it, but because it runs through it. Not because he is insensitive, but because he is aware. Some people, when faced with difficulty, collapse mentally because their minds never learned to support themselves. Others, however, weather internal and external storms without losing their clarity. Not because they are physically stronger, but because they have cultivated a very profound quality: the ability not to be swept away by the first emotion, the first thought, the first interpretation. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a tree. A young tree bends with any wind. A fragile tree breaks in a storm. But a strong tree, a tree with deep roots, can withstand wind, changes of season, and still stand. Not because it doesn't feel the movement, but because its stability doesn't depend on the surface. It depends on the root. An unshakable mind is one that has cultivated inner roots: presence, clarity, detachment, observation, calm, and wisdom. It is not born of harshness, but of understanding. It is not born of avoiding pain, but of understanding it. It is not born of ignoring emotion, but of allowing emotion to flow without becoming one's identity. But how is that mind built? How does one go from being fragile in the face of everything to being stable in the face of almost anything? How does one go from being someone who reacts to the slightest conflict to being someone who observes from a distance before acting? How does one go from feeling emotionally broken to feeling internally invincible? Buddhism teaches that the mind is like a muscle. It grows stronger with practice, awareness, and daily intention. It becomes unbreakable when you learn not to surrender your mental power to what you cannot control. It solidifies when you stop reacting without understanding. It becomes enlightened when you learn to see things as they are, not as your fear tells you they are. Perhaps for a long time, you've felt that you're too sensitive, too emotional, too vulnerable. And it's true. You are sensitive, emotional, and vulnerable. We all are. But that's not the root of fragility. Fragility arises when you don't know how to navigate your inner world, when you get lost within your own mind because no one taught you how to recognize its terrain. The good news, and it's profoundly liberating, is that mental strength doesn't depend on your past, your personality, or your circumstances. It depends on how you train your consciousness starting today. It depends on whether you choose to continue living like a tree that breaks in the wind, or to begin cultivating roots so deep that even in chaos you can remain standing. There's a Zen phrase that sums it up perfectly. An unanchored mind breaks. A mind anchored in presence becomes indestructible. And this is where the journey begins, in the decision not to want a life without difficulties, but a mind capable of navigating them without losing its peace. In the decision not to want to control the world, but to control your interpretation of the world. In the decision not to want to eliminate pain, but to learn not to multiply it. From here, you will discover 8 profound keys that don't harden the mind, but rather liberate it. 8 ways to train your inner self so that no external storm can sweep you away. 8 roots that, when cultivated, transform you into someone mentally stable, conscious, present, and above all, unbreakable. The first key is so essential that, if you truly understand it, it will transform how you relate to every emotion, every thought, and every challenge that comes your way. Because an unbreakable mind is not defined by what it feels, but by what it does with what it feels. And that's the starting point. There is a truth that seems simple, but that very few people truly understand. It is not possible to build an unshakable mind while you continue to believe everything you think. That's the first key. The mind breaks down not because of what happens in life, but because of the immediate, automatic, and unquestioned interpretation it makes of what happens. The human mind constantly produces thoughts. They are not chosen, filtered, or intentional. They appear like clouds in the sky, some clear, some dark, some dense, some so fleeting you barely notice them. But when you identify with them, each thought becomes a conviction, a command, a threat, a story that consumes you. Mental fragility arises when you confuse thought with reality. When a thought says, "This is going to go wrong," and you react as if it were a prophecy. When she says, "I'm not enough," and you take it as fact. When you say, "I can't do this," and you shut down before even trying. When you say, "Everyone is against me," and you build emotional tension on a distorted perception. An unshakable mind is formed when you discover that a thought is just a thought, not a truth. It's not an order. It is not a sentence. It's not a destination. It is not an objective description of you or the world. It is a mental event, not an absolute reality. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering lies in identification. When you become so intertwined with your thoughts that you believe you and the thought are one and the same. But when you learn to observe your thoughts without being swept away by them, something powerful happens. You regain your freedom. That freedom is the foundation of an unbreakable mind. Imagine you are sitting by a river and you see leaves floating by. Some drift by quickly, others slowly. Some are beautiful, others are withered. But you don't jump into the water to catch them. You don't try to stop them. You don't cling to any of them. You just watch as the river carries them away. This is how your relationship with thoughts should work. They are leaves. They are movements. They are mental content. They are not you. When you don't question a thought, it becomes the master of your life. When you observe it without fighting, it loses its power. The power of a thought lies not in its content, but in your identification with it. Many people believe that being mentally strong means not having negative thoughts. That's impossible. All human beings have them. The difference is that a fragile person reacts, while a conscious person observes. And in that minimal difference lies all inner freedom. The unbreakable mind is not the one that has no fear, but the one that recognizes fear as a thought. not as an identity. It is not the one who does not experience doubts, but the one who knows that doubt does not define her ability. It's not about not feeling insecurity, but about understanding that insecurity is just a temporary cloud. When a thought arises, you have two options: believe it or see it. Most people believe it. The minority, those who achieve true mental strength, look at it from a distance. That distance is healing. It is an inner space where emotion does not dominate you, where thought does not control you, where you can choose how to respond. Buddhism calls this becoming the observer, not the judge, not the enemy of the mind, not the controller, but the conscious observer who looks at mental content without merging with it. When you are the observer, no thought can break you. It may move you, it may unsettle you, it may appear forcefully, but it cannot bring you down, because you are no longer the voice speaking within your mind. You are the one who listens to her. That changes everything. A fragile mind is built when every thought is interpreted as a threat. A strong mind is built when every thought is recognized as a temporary visitor. An unbreakable mind is built when no thought can become a tyrant. Think about how many times your day has been ruined by a single thought upon waking. How many times have you canceled plans because of a mental interpretation that wasn't even true? How many times did you hide, sabotage yourself, compare yourself, hurt yourself? Not because of what happened, but because of what your mind told you was happening. Freedom arises when you say internally, "This is a thought, not a truth." That phrase, if you practice it, if you understand it, if you integrate it, is a spiritual weapon of enormous power. It protects you from anxiety, fear, guilt, insecurity, and self-criticism. Not because it eliminates those thoughts, but because it takes away their authority. There are thoughts that seem so real that your body reacts as if you were facing real danger. Your heart races, your breath catches, your muscles tense, and yet it's all happening inside your mind. The enemy does not exist outside. The threat is not external. It's just a thought you believed. When you learn to question what appears in your mind, something profoundly changes within you. The sense of control returns, tranquility returns, clarity returns. You no longer live as a victim of your inner world. You become their guide. Observing without identifying is the first root of the unshakable mind. From there, anything that life throws at you can pass through you without destroying you. Because what destroys is not the event, but the story that your mind fabricates. What hurts is not the emotion itself, but the struggle against it. What breaks you is not life itself, but the automatic interpretation your mind makes of it. And when you understand this, not intellectually, but experientially, you begin to recover a power that perhaps you didn't know you had lost. The power not to believe everything. That power is freedom. That power is calm. That power is wisdom. That power is the foundation upon which everything else will be built. The first key has already been sown. Learn to look at your mind without becoming it. Now, from that initial clarity, the next key emerges. One that teaches you to maintain your center even when the emotion is intense, even when fear tightens, even when life becomes noise. A key that completely separates the fragile mind from the truly unbreakable mind. There's a moment in life we've all experienced, though we almost never acknowledge it. That instant when you know an emotion is growing inside you, you know it's gaining strength, you know it's taking up space in your chest, but you still don't know how to contain it. And then, what always happens, happens. The emotion takes hold, governs you, sweeps you away. Not because it's too big, but because you don't know how to stay grounded while it's happening. Herein lies the second key to an unbreakable mind: not allowing emotion to steal your presence. Emotion is not your enemy. Loss of presence is. People break down emotionally not because they feel too much, but because they stop being present as soon as they feel. Emotion appears and presence disappears. Fear appears and presence disappears. Anger appears and presence disappears. Anguish appears and presence disappears. The emotion grows and you disappear within it as if falling into a well. And what breaks you is not the emotion, but the loss of your center. The emotion should never have more presence than you. Buddhism teaches that emotions are waves, and you are the ocean. The wave may be large, intense, noisy, violent, but it is still just a wave. When you lose your presence, you believe you are the wave, and you sink into it. When you maintain your presence, you remember that you are the ocean, vast, deep, and steady. A fragile mind gets lost in the wave. An unyielding mind senses it, but does not become it. This doesn't mean suppressing, ignoring, or analyzing your emotions. It means staying present, aware, breathing, feeling, instead of disappearing into the inner storm. The emotion wants to move, wants to express itself, wants to flow through you, but it doesn't want to destroy you. Emotion destroys you when you identify with it. When fear appears and you say, "I'm afraid, therefore I am in danger," the emotion takes over. When sadness appears and you say, "I am sad, therefore I am weak," the emotion becomes identity. When anger appears and you say, "I am angry, therefore I must react," the emotion takes control. But when any emotion arises and you say internally, "I'm feeling this, and I'm still here," there is an emotion moving, but I am not the emotion. This happens inside me, but it doesn't define me. Emotion loses its destructive power. Holding your presence during an emotion is one of Buddhism's most transformative practices because it teaches you to experience it without collapsing. The emotion may be intense, but you don't disappear. You remain present, breathing, feeling, observing. The emotion moves on. You remain. Presence is the root of the unbreakable. Observe how emotions function when there is no presence. The mind creates stories around them. The body tenses up. Breathing becomes shallow. Fear is multiplying. Emotion becomes narrative. Narrative becomes identity. And identity traps you. But when the presence is there, something different happens. Emotion is just a feeling. The sensation moves like energy. Energy seeks to be released. There is no story. There is no identity. Internal movement only. And the internal movement has never destroyed anyone. What destroys is the mental narrative that accompanies it when you're absent. An unwavering mind recognizes emotion without getting lost within it. Like someone watching a storm from a deep cave, you hear the wind, you hear the rain, you see the lightning, but you are protected in your inner center. The storm exists, but it doesn't sweep you away. That cave is your presence. Presence doesn't eliminate what you feel. It gives you a place to be while you feel it. And that completely changes your relationship with your emotional world. Emotion is no longer a threat. It's information. It's no longer an enemy. It's a visitor. It's no longer chaos. It's energy in motion. When you allow an emotion to be felt without getting lost in it, something powerful happens. The emotion transforms. Fear loses its power. Sadness softens. Anger dissolves. Anxiety loosens. Not because you control it, but because you don't feed it with your identity. The emotion lives on, but it doesn't control you. It passes through you, but it doesn't break you. It exists, but it doesn't define you. It touches you, but it doesn't break you. That's the kind of training few people do because it requires staying in the present even when it hurts. Most people run away, get distracted, repress their feelings, or identify with them. And that's why they suffer more. Not because of the emotion itself, but because of their inability to hold on to it. Presence is your anchor. Without it, any emotion will shake you to your core. With her, no emotion can bring you down. Imagine living like this. Fear appears, but you remain centered. Sadness appears, but you continue to breathe consciously. Uncertainty arises, but you remain present. Anger appears, but you see its source without reacting. Your life would change radically because you would no longer fear your emotions. And when you don't fear your emotions, you become mentally indestructible. Nothing that happens within you can destroy you if you are there to hold it together. This second key transforms your relationship with yourself, but it also paves the way for something even greater. The art of maintaining your stability when what threatens you comes not from within, but from without. When life hits hard, when others pressure you, when uncertainty surrounds you, when circumstances become difficult. An unbreakable mind needs more than just inner strength. It needs a deep understanding of the external world. And the following key will show you how to act when life doesn't cooperate, when reality doesn't respond as you expect, when you face situations that could break anyone, except someone who has learned to see the world with the eyes of wisdom. There's a kind of pain that doesn't originate within you, but outside. An unexpected comment, a stressful situation, a sudden loss, an unintended conflict, a blatant injustice, an unexpected change, news that disrupts your plans. And as soon as it happens, your mind reacts as if its stability depended on the world being different than it is. But the truth is this: an unbreakable mind is not built by changing the world, but by changing the way you understand it. The third key is the most difficult for many people, precisely because it requires giving up a deeply ingrained illusion, the illusion of total control. Mental fragility increases the more you try to control what is not up to you. Mental strength increases the more clarity you have about what does depend on you. Buddhism sums it up in a simple and luminous teaching. Suffering arises when you fight against what is. And what is what is. Not what it should be. Not what you would prefer it to be. Not what you imagined. Not what you planned. What it is. The fragile mind breaks down because it constantly struggles with reality. It wants life to be smooth when it is harsh. It wants people to be predictable when they are not. It wants the world to conform to its expectations when the world has never done that for anyone. The unbreakable mind understands that life is not required to be comfortable, perfect, or fair. And that doesn't make it any less valuable. When something difficult happens, you have two paths: fight with reality or walk with it. Fighting destroys you. Conscious acceptance transforms you. Accepting does not mean resigning yourself, giving up, or settling. Acceptance means ceasing to mentally resist what is already happening. Mental resistance, that this shouldn't be happening, I can't handle this, why me, doesn't eliminate pain. It multiplies it. When resistance disappears, clarity appears. And with clarity, you can act. You can clearly choose. With clarity, you can move through what used to break you. An unbreakable mind does not depend on life being easy. It depends on not turning what life brings into an enemy. Not because what is happening is good, but because fighting against the inevitable robs you of the energy you need to respond with wisdom. Think of a storm. If you resist the wind, it wears you down. If you accept that the wind exists, you can find the best position to remain steady. Acceptance is that internal stance. It allows you to hold on when the outside world becomes turbulent. Many people think that acceptance is passive, but true acceptance is a form of profound activation. That is, to tell yourself, this is happening. I don't choose it, but I face it. I don't want it, but I'm holding on to it. I don't control it, but I do control my response. And that's where the strength is born. The fragile mind focuses on what it cannot control. The unwavering mind focuses on what it can control. Your attention, your interpretation, your presence, your breathing, your action, your attitude. You can't control other people's behavior, but you can control the energy with which you respond. You can't control life's changes, but you can control the clarity with which you navigate them. You can't control the past or guarantee the future, but you can control how you inhabit this moment. That's liberating. When you relinquish the attempt to control the uncontrollable, your mind stops wearing itself down. It regains strength. It regains stability. It reclaims space. And that space is pure gold. It is the ground where you can act from wisdom, not from fear. Think about all the times you broke down emotionally. Was it because of what happened, or because of the internal story you constructed about what happened? Was it because of reality, or because of the resistance to that reality existing? Was it because of the pain or the fear of the pain? Was it because of the problem itself, or because you wished it had never happened? The mind breaks down more from its own resistance than from life itself. Buddhism teaches that mental strength is born when the mind can say, I don't like this, but it is what it is. I accept it, and from here, I decide what to do. That attitude makes you immensely powerful, because no one can take away your ability to accept. No one can take away your ability to respond. No one can take away the clarity that comes from the present. No one can take away the peace that comes when you no longer fight against the inevitable. Acceptance is the root of stability. From that position, nothing finds you weak. Neither crises, nor losses, nor injustices, nor unexpected changes, nor other people's words. The mind that accepts does not give up. It grows stronger. The mind that accepts does not break. It adapts. The mind that accepts does not flee. It understands. The mind that accepts does not suffer unnecessarily. It is liberated. That is the difference between inevitable pain and optional suffering. When the external world becomes turbulent, your internal stability depends on this deep understanding. You don't control everything, but you do control who you are in the face of what you have to live through. And when that understanding becomes part of your life, when you no longer react with resistance, but with clarity, the mind becomes more stable. Not indestructible through negation, but unbreakable through understanding. This third key changes your relationship with the world, but the next one will change your relationship with your own internal history, with those repetitive narratives, with those voices from the past that return, with those memories that seem to prevent you from moving forward. An unbreakable mind not only learns to face the present without resistance, but also to not allow the past to continue to govern its energy. And that's the next step. There is something silent that breaks many people, even when their present is good, even when their life improves, even when they do everything right. The invisible burden of the past that they still carry inside. It's not the memories themselves that are harmful, it's the unconscious way you keep reliving them. It's allowing an old version of yourself to continue interfering with the life you have today. It's reliving painful stories without realizing they no longer belong in this moment. That's why the fourth key to being mentally unbreakable is profound, transformative, and at the same time difficult for many. Freeing yourself from the narrative of the past and learning to look at your history without it determining your value or your present. The past doesn't break you because of what happened, but because of your relationship with it. What breaks you isn't the event itself, but the conclusions you drew at the time, conclusions that may no longer be true, but that your mind keeps repeating as if they were permanent laws. When you were younger, less aware, more vulnerable, you may have believed things about yourself that protected you at the time, but limit you now. I am not enough. I don't deserve to be treated well. I can't trust anyone. I will always fail. If I show weakness, they will hurt me. I am not important. Each of those statements is not a truth, it is an interpretation. An interpretation made by a self that no longer exists, by a self that didn't know what it knows today, by a self that reacted from fear and not from wisdom. And yet, we carry those thoughts as if they were permanent tattoos. The fragile mind breaks because it relives the past again and again, as if it were an endless shadow falling upon the present. The unbreakable mind understands something fundamental. The past only remains alive if you continue to feed it with attention. Buddhism teaches that memory is not a passive archive. It is an active construction. Every time you remember a painful event, you not only reactivate it, you reinforce it. And each time you observe it from a place of presence, without identifying with it, you free it a little more. Suffering does not come from remembering. It comes from continuing to look at it with the eyes of the past. Emotional memory works like this. An old pain touches your mind. Your body reacts as if it were happening again, and you believe that reaction is real. But it isn't. It's a reverberation, an old imprint, an echo that no longer has any basis in the present. The unbreakable mind does not seek to erase the past, but to deactivate its destructive power. As? Looking at it from a new awareness, it's like finding an old photograph of yourself, crying, scared, or confused. Seeing it wouldn't break you. It wouldn't change who you are today. It wouldn't affect your current worth. You would just look at it and say, "That was me. I was learning. I was growing. I'm not that version of myself anymore." That's the secret. Do not heal the past with force, but with light, with presence, with understanding, with a mature, conscious perspective that recognizes pain without turning it into identity. The past loses its power when you look at it without fear, when you stop repeating it, when you stop identifying with old conclusions you made at a time when you knew less about life, when you stop punishing yourself for what you did or what you allowed, when you realize that all your past versions were doing the best they could with what they knew. When you recognize that you cannot demand from your past self the wisdom you have now. There are wounds that don't hurt because of what happened, but because they never had the chance to be clearly seen. We have been raised to run from pain, to bury it, to ignore it, to disguise it. But what is hidden does not disappear. It stagnates. What is observed is released. An unbreakable mind is formed when you can remember without collapsing, look without reliving, feel without getting trapped. When you can say, "This happened, it affected me, I learned, I grew up, and now I move on." When the past ceases to be a prison, it becomes a teacher. When it stops ruling you, it makes you stronger. When it stops defining you, it sets you free. When it stops repeating itself, life changes. And the most beautiful thing is this: you don't need to heal your entire past to start being strong today. You just need to stop living inside it. The past can't break you today unless you continue to carry it around as if it still belongs to you. An unwavering mind understands that each day is an opportunity to avoid repeating old patterns. You don't repeat the past because you don't understand it. You repeat it because you don't observe it with enough awareness. The fourth key reminds you of this. Your story doesn't define you, it accompanies you. Your wounds don't limit you, they shape you. Your past is not your destiny, it is your ground. From that ground, you can rebuild yourself, reinvent yourself, be reborn as many times as necessary. And it is here, when you are no longer a slave to what happened to you, that an inner strength emerges that was previously unavailable. A strength that comes not from control or harshness, but from inner freedom. That freedom is what will allow you to understand the next key. It is not enough to stop fearing your past. You must learn to stop fearing the future. The unbreakable mind is not trapped in what has already happened, but neither is it anxious about what might happen. And that's the next step. There is something that silently wears down, breaks down, and exhausts the mind more than any real event. The anticipation of the future. Not the future itself, but the story your mind creates about it. Anxiety doesn't come from tomorrow. It comes from your inability to stay in the now. The worry doesn't arise from the future event itself, but from the interpretation you make before it happens. Fear does not originate from something that exists, but from something your mind imagines. Therefore, the fifth key to being mentally unbreakable is essential. Do not live in the future. Do not project suffering. Do not anticipate defeats. Do not build catastrophic scenarios that only exist in your imagination. Mental fragility arises when your mind races forward faster than you can sustain it. Start inventing problems, threats, dark possibilities. It begins to show you a path that doesn't yet exist, but that your body interprets as real. And then you get tense, you get exhausted, you break down even before anything has happened. Buddhism teaches something profoundly liberating. Anticipatory suffering is pointless suffering. Your mind is capable of living 100 painful lives without having experienced any. You can imagine every possible failure, every possible rejection, every possible loss, every scenario where everything goes wrong. And with each thought, your body reacts. It releases cortisol, accelerates the heart, contracts the abdomen, and tenses the shoulders. You suffer for something that doesn't exist. The unbreakable mind understands this trap and trains itself in a powerful skill, not taking as truth what has not yet happened. Anxiety is the distance between who you are and where your mind is. You are sitting here, but your mind is living a dreaded tomorrow. You are breathing this moment, but your mind is struggling with an imagined future. You are safe now, but your mind convinces you that you won't be tomorrow. And that internal imbalance is devastating. Mental strength is not built by eliminating uncertainty. Uncertainty is part of life, but by learning not to turn uncertainty into a threat. Uncertainty is not the enemy. It is the natural condition of existence. The fragile mind needs reassurances to feel safe. The unwavering mind feels secure even without guarantees. But how is that achieved? First, understanding that nothing the mind imagines has real existence until it happens. Your thoughts about the future are not premonitions. They are not warnings. They are not destinies. They are hypotheses. These are possibilities. Some neutral ones, some positive ones, other negatives. But none of them are true. The fragile mind believes its hypotheses as if they were facts. The strong mind observes its hypotheses without turning them into reality. The unshakable mind chooses not to live within any of them until life shows it what is true. When you anticipate suffering, you are experiencing double pain. the one about what you fear, and the one about what you do to yourself when you fear it. And often, what you feared never happens. But the damage is already done because your nervous system experienced it as if it were real. Imagine how many times you have suffered for something that never happened. How many nights did your mind steal your sleep over a scenario that never happened? How many decisions did you postpone for fear of a future that never came? How many opportunities did you miss by anticipating a non-existent rejection? How many relationships did you damage because of stories that only existed in your mind? You may have been more broken by imagined futures than by true realities. The unbreakable mind breaks that cycle. Not by running away from the future, but by letting go of it. Not by controlling it, but by trusting it. Not by anticipating it, but by inhabiting it when it arrives. It is an act of enormous courage to remain here in this moment without allowing the mind to race forward. It requires discipline. Presence required. It takes humility to accept that you don't know what will happen tomorrow, and wisdom to understand that you don't need to know it to live in peace today. Life is never lived in the future. We always live in this moment. This is the only terrain where you can act, breathe, sustain yourself, transform yourself. The future doesn't need your anxiety. It needs your clarity when it arrives. A mind that lives projecting itself towards tomorrow is a mind that never rests. A mind that learns to stay in the present is a mind that regains its power. Buddhism calls it anchoring in the now, the conscious decision to return again and again to the only place where life truly happens. It's not about ignoring responsibilities or living without planning. It's about not suffering prematurely, by not giving your energy to imaginary threats. Don't destroy your stability with thoughts that have no substance. The unbreakable mind says, when that moment comes, I will face it with whatever resources I have. I'm not going to torture myself in advance, and that decision completely changes the internal vibration. The future ceases to be the enemy. It ceases to be a threat. It stops being a dark place. It simply becomes a space you don't yet know, and therefore, it doesn't deserve your fear. And once you are no longer enslaved by the past or the future, fertile ground appears in which true inner strength can grow. A space where your mind is free to be steady, clear, and deeply present. In that space lies the next key: internal discipline, the invisible art that only the strongest minds practice, and without which no stability can be maintained. And that's where we're headed now. There is a truth that we all know, but few accept. Nothing in the mind can be sustained without discipline. Not the calm, not clarity, not the presence, not peace, not balance. Nothing lasts without a daily intention to cultivate what you wish to keep alive within yourself. A fragile mind is not fragile because it is weak, but because it is undisciplined. It is driven by every impulse, every thought, every emotion, every reaction. It lives on autopilot, allowing the immediate to govern what is important. And when the mind lives like that, everything breaks down. The unbreakable mind, on the other hand, is built like a temple is built. Stone by stone, gesture by gesture, day after day, even on the days when you don't feel like it, even on those days when everything in you wants to return to old habits. The sixth key is this: train your mind like you would train a muscle, with consistency, with gentleness, with patience, with perseverance. Internal discipline is not rigid. It is not violent. It is not an imposition. Discipline, from the Buddhist perspective, is a space of care. It is saying to your mind, I know you tend to go off into chaos, but I'll bring you back as many times as necessary. I know you tend to get distracted, but I will gently bring you back to the present. I know you tend to believe your thoughts, but I'll remind you that not everyone deserves your attention. I know you tend to live in the past or the future, but I will accompany you to this moment. That's discipline, the constant decision to return. The fragile mind gives up at the first negative thought. The unwavering mind observes the thought, breathes, and returns. At the first sign of anxiety, she focuses. At the first sign of fear, it takes root. At the first sign of wanting to flee, she stays. At the first internal noise, remember that you can choose which voice to listen to. Discipline doesn't eliminate inner storms. It gives you a refuge within them. Many people believe that mental strength appears out of nowhere, like a personality trait or a gift some are born with. But the truth is different. Mental strength is the result of thousands of micro-decisions that almost no one sees. It's choosing not to react when you could react. It's choosing not to abandon your practice when you're tired. It's choosing to breathe before you answer. It's choosing to observe before believing. It's choosing to stay rather than run away. They are invisible, silent, small gestures, but accumulated, they transform everything. Imagine you have a garden. If you don't take care of it, it will become overgrown with weeds. If you don't water it, it dries out. If you don't prune it, it gets messy. Not because the garden is bad, but because that's how nature works. The mind is the same. If you don't take care of it, it fills up with useless thoughts. If you don't watch it, it overflows. If you don't train it, it weakens. Internal discipline is constant watering. It's daily care. It's a silent commitment to your mental well-being. You don't need hours of meditation. You don't need a perfect life. You don't need to isolate yourself from the world. You just need consistency. 5 minutes of presence a day is better than 1 hour once a month. A conscious breath in the midst of chaos is worth more than an ideal meditation in the mountains. A firm decision not to believe a harmful thought can save you an entire day of unnecessary suffering. But none of this happens without discipline. Discipline is not pressure, it is protection. It's about holding on even when your mind wants to fall. It's about getting up even when it would be easy to go back to old habits. It's about staying with yourself even when your impulsiveness wants to take you away from your peace. Buddhism teaches that discipline is the hug you give yourself when your mind wants to do the opposite of what you need. It's deep self-care. It's self-love in action. And here's something beautiful. The more you discipline your mind, the less discipline you need. It's like pushing a wheel. At first it's difficult, it feels heavy, it resists. But once it starts turning, it doesn't need so much force anymore. It moves forward by inertia. A mind that trains presence begins to choose presence naturally. A mind that trains itself to be calm begins to return to calmness out of habit. A mind that trains detachment begins to let go with ease. A mind that trains observation stops identifying with noise. Discipline creates new paths. Paths that were once overgrown with weeds. Roads that were previously inaccessible. Paths that now become the natural route of your mental life. And it is precisely thanks to this silent discipline that the next key becomes possible. The ability to consciously choose which mental battles are worth fighting and which should be left behind. Because part of being unbreakable is not facing everything, but learning not to wear yourself out on things that don't deserve your energy. That's the next step. There comes a moment in everyone's life when they begin to awaken. The moment they realize that not every battle is worth fighting, not every voice deserves to be heard, and not every thought deserves energy. That is the instant the mind begins to grow truly strong. because it understands that strength is not about enduring everything, but about wisely choosing what is worth holding on to and what is best to let go of. The seventh key to being mentally unbreakable is this: do not give your energy to what has no solution, is unimportant, or does not belong to you. The fragile mind breaks because it is worn down on hundreds of fronts at once. The unbreakable mind is selective. She knows what deserves her attention and what doesn't. He knows when to act and when to observe. She knows when to speak and when to remain silent. He knows when to advance and when to rest. Every thought, every emotion, every conflict, every expectation, every comment, everything demands your energy. But you're the one who decides who you give it to. Imagine a warrior who enters a battle for every shadow he sees moving. He wouldn't take long to collapse from exhaustion, not from the enemy's strength, but from a lack of strategy. That's how most people live, fighting shadows, reacting to provocations that don't matter, defending their ego in petty situations, carrying burdens that aren't theirs, and bearing responsibilities that were never theirs. The unwavering mind acts like a monk observing a storm from afar. It understands that the noise doesn't require its intervention. It doesn't chase after every thought. It doesn't respond to every impulse. It doesn't wear itself out over every detail. Buddhism teaches something profoundly simple and at the same time profoundly liberating. Not everything deserves your energy. Some problems solve themselves if you don't feed them. Some thoughts dissolve if you don't follow them. Some emotions calm down if you observe them. There are conflicts that don't need your involvement. There are other people's expectations that you don't have to carry. There are people who speak from their pain, not from the truth. And there are paths that only bring exhaustion, not growth. The fragile mind responds to everything, gets caught up in everything, takes everything personally. The unbreakable mind chooses its battles wisely because it understands that its energy is not infinite and that the most valuable thing it has is its ability to remain centered. It's not about becoming indifferent, but about prioritizing your peace over your need to be right, win, prove yourself, or control. Mental strength is not measured by how much you can endure, but by how much you are able to let go of without feeling like you are losing something. See how your life changes when you stop fighting for what doesn't need fighting. You lose less energy, you sleep better, breathe deeper, your mind clears, your body relaxes, your presence becomes more stable. Because real exhaustion doesn't come from big problems, but from small worries that you give more energy to than they deserve. An unwavering mind knows how to filter. Is this really important? Does this belong to me? Will this be resolved without my intervention? Is this a battle of the ego or a battle of the soul? Does this require energy or simply awareness? Is this a real threat or a mental distortion? When you learn to ask these questions calmly, without fear, without automatic reaction, life becomes lighter. Not because the challenges disappear, but because you are no longer scattered. Your energy, once divided into 1,000 parts, begins to focus. And in that focus, true strength is born. But even so, the deepest key is missing, the one that unites all the others. The key that makes a mind truly unbreakable is not controlling thoughts, emotions, or external circumstances. It is something more fundamental, more spiritual, more internal. The eighth key is this: to build an inner center so deep that nothing external can tear you away from yourself. That center is not an idea. It is not a belief. It is not a technique. It is an experience. It is that quiet place inside you that you can return to even when fear screams. It is that quiet space that remains intact even when life gets chaotic. It is that point of consciousness that observes everything without breaking down, without judging, without interpreting. That center is your essence, not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your achievements, not your mistakes, not your past, not your expectations. What you are when you no longer define yourself by anything. An unbreakable mind is born when you discover that this center exists, and you begin to return to it every day. That place inside you is untouched by noise, unbroken by challenges, unstained by fear. That deep presence is your true strength. It is the root that is not seen, but that sustains everything visible. The problem isn't that life has storms. It always will. The problem is that you have lived too long away from your center. You have lived on the surface, where everything moves you, where everything affects you, where everything shakes you. When you live on the surface, any wave will knock you down. When you live from the center, no wave can destroy you. That center is cultivated using the above keys: observing thoughts, holding emotions, accepting reality, letting go of the past, leaving the future in its place, disciplining the mind, choosing your battles. Each of these practices brings you a little closer to what has always been inside you, a space of pure consciousness where there is no chaos, no fear, no possible rupture. An unbreakable mind is not a hard, cold, or closed mind. It is a profoundly awakened mind, a mind that knows how to return to itself, a mind that understands that its true strength lies not in controlling the world, but in remaining intact within. And when you discover that, when you feel that center and take responsibility for it, everything changes. Problems keep coming, but they no longer destroy you. Emotions still appear, but they no longer sweep you away. The past still exists, but it no longer defines you. The future remains uncertain, but it no longer terrifies you. It's you, present, aware, alive, anchored in your center. Unbreakable, not because nothing touches you, but because nothing that touches you can break you.